Before we get started, I'd like to thank the audience for waiting. We had an executive session to cover early on, so we got that done. We're running a little bit behind our normal startup time of 6 o'clock for the public session, but we'll get going here pretty quick. Okay. Manitou Springs City Council, we're back in regular session. This is April the 18th, 2023. Our next agenda item is E, the approval of the agenda. Council, you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. I look for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda.
Motion is second. Judy, you want us to vote electronically? Okay.
Six to zero in favor.
Okay, good. We're off to a good start. Okay, next item, public comment on non-agenda items. So this is the portion of the meeting that is open to the public to speak to anything that's not on the agenda. We have anybody who'd like to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? And Judy, did we get any communications?
I don't see any, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Let's apparently not. Let's go ahead and get on with business then. Okay, we have item G. It's a consent calendar. We have 3 items. First is approval of the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. The second, presentation of warrants. And the third is the annual approval of emergency operations plan. And I would like to pull item 1 to be discussed separately. Does anyone else have any concerns about 2 or 3? If not,
I'll move that we approve consent calendar items G2 and G3.
Okay, motion is second. Let's go ahead and vote.
6 to 0 in favor.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I'd like to take up item 1, approval of the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. And in the version that council received in the packet, there was a comment there that I had made. It was about, there was a 95%. It didn't say 95% of what, but the putting that back into full context, we were talking about the Pike ride and that Manitou was contributing 5% of the administrative costs to Pike ride. And I had asked the question, is Colorado Springs paying for their 95%? So we'd just like to have that added to explain what the 95% was for.
And Mayor, the copy for the minutes that are in your packet, in the folder, signing folder, that has the wording that was corrected.
Okay,
So I
great.
don't know if you want to go ahead and read that.
Great. You're clairvoyant, I guess. Okay. So if that was what I'd asked for, I don't know if council has any other concerns. Okay, that was page 5. Okay. So with that correction, I would go ahead and move that do we approve the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote.
Six to 0 in favor.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, on to presentations. H1, Pikespeak Area Council of Governments and Pikespeak Rural Transportation Authority update. So just kind of like to share a few things with you. Last Wednesday was the meetings for those 2 organizations. And Judy, could you bring up my slides? Council, I'm sorry that with the meeting on Wednesday, I can't get the slides prepared and into the packet. So just ask you to walk through with us with me on this. And these are a few things. If you don't have a deep interest in it, that's fine. And I've actually left out some of the things like, asphalt contracts and repaving streets in Colorado Springs out because I didn't think you'd at all be interested in that. But there's some things you might like to know about. At PPACG, business there's an update. We had an update on a comprehensive economic development strategy. And I've got a separate slide on that. Legislative updates, on the slide there, air quality, several things. So we'll take those here in sequence. The 4th bullet that I have Jody Barker from the Area Agency on Aging, which is a subdivision or subset of PPACG devoted to senior services. Megan and Alex from our staff have gotten together with Jody Barker, the executive director there, And they're lining up some free services for our seniors. So they've already gotten free COVID tests and the Yellow Book Senior Services Directories. I think you all got a copy last week. Those are available at the pool and City Hall. You know, if you know seniors who you think would benefit from having those resources, let them know. The Area Agency on Aging will have an information table and a couple of their staff members there, I believe, at the next food distribution. That'll be May 2nd, the swimming pool. And Megan and Alex are looking at possibilities of having classes on financial planning or preparation and a community health fair. And there'd be, you know, the flavoring there would be for seniors. So we'd be able to do some things for our population, which, you know, from the last census, we realized that we're aging and a lot of our households are two or in some cases one person. So they could probably use some of these additional services. The good news at PPRTA was we were approved for almost $73,000 in funding. This is for electrical vehicle charging stations. There'll be 5 charging stations at Hiawatha Gardens. I think Dole is estimating that we might be able to start on this in May. And this was supplemented with an $88,000 grant from Charger Head, Colorado. We also had an executive session, which I can't tell you about, but it was the most fun executive session I have ever been at. It was we were laughing heavily all the time, partly because things were happening to other people that we weren't part of this, but it was, I'll just mention that. Judy, if we could, let's go to the next slide, if you would. Comprehensive economic development strategy. So this is a grand scheme. Natalie Johnson serves on this group. She could probably do a better job of explaining this. So if council's interested, we'll ask her to go over it at some point. There's at least 100 people involved. They have 19 subcommittees. It's a lot. I don't see that it has a whole lot of relevance for Manitou. Natalie will probably pick up the nuggets. But if anybody else is interested, the meetings are ongoing and you're welcome to find a seat at the table. You just need to be aware of that. Legislative update. At least several hours a week's devoted to legislative updates. Of the many bills they have, the most controversial has been Senate Bill 1213 land use. And I know some of you have heard about it. Judith was on a Zoom meeting week before last. You're kind of spun up on that. This is a fairly radical land use bill, and I want to call this to council's attention. PPACG has opposed it, Colorado Municipal League. I know the entire Fountain City Council wrote a critical letter. John Suthers has written a couple, at least one, I think maybe 2, critical editorials on this. This would affect cities' land use codes pretty significantly. At present, the way it's envisioned, it would affect, in El Paso County, we only affect Colorado Springs, Monument, and Fountain. So Manitou's off the target for right now, but it is pretty extensive. And it would, for instance, it would take the land use code that we approved in January and pretty much throw it out the window. So it's conceivable that council, if council want to entertain the idea of sending a letter of opposition, that might be an appropriate thing to do. I know Thursday night there's another, there's be a Zoom meeting from the Colorado Municipal League to discuss the status of that bill. Okay, Judy, if we go on. Okay, we'll come back to this one. Can you go to the next one? Is there another one? Okay. Okay, and Judy, can you go to the other slide deck? So I want to talk just briefly about air quality, because this is something PPACG has looked at pretty continuously for the last 4 months, and it's getting to be somewhat problematic, so I wanted to share this with you. Okay, a lot of this, there's 2 slides on here that are actually fairly significant, except here at the top, there are 2 monitoring stations. One's the Air Force Academy, top line USAF, and then the other is Manitou. It's over by the football field on El Monte. And you can see the numbers up there. Judy, is this the first slide or the second one? First, can you go to the next one? Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, that's the numbers there. Okay, on the right there, those red numbers, those are the ones that we want not to exceed. And you can see that, well, Manitou, we were at 68, we're 2 points over. The Air Force Academy, they're 1 point over. And there's a problem in all this. So let's, in the way this is done. So if you would go to the next slide. So here's what, I'll try to be brief on this, but so in the first column there, 65.8 or 65.1 parts per billion. Those are the target values, but you can see the contribution of various factors, initial and boundary. That was if nobody lived here, this is what we'd find in the air. It's my understanding. If you live in Colorado, that's the additional amount you get. Nature and wildlife contribute the amount in the fourth column. Other states basically introduce this amount of ozone pollution to us. And we've got Canada, offshore, and then difference. You can see we're contributing 5 to 8% of the problem. There's not a whole lot we can do to really bring the numbers down. The federal government came up with these numbers and they use the same numbers across the entire United States. So in the high, dry, arid West, the same things apply as they would down on the, let's say, on the coast of Florida or in Maine or anywhere. So there's an effort by some jurisdictions to ask the federal government to go and have a more lenient or logical methodology, or as far as to figuring out what offenses are. Now, let's see, can you go to the next slide there, Judy? Okay, I'm sorry. We go back. There's a question on column 2. Okay, initial and boundary. That's what you would get if there were no people here. That's my understanding, is that's just the native ozone in the air. And how you exactly differentiate that, I mean, we've got offshore Canada, but that would be, it's my understanding, that's just what Mother Nature provides. So it's a fairly high amount. Okay, Colorado. Okay, in the third column here, Colorado, that's what Colorado contributes. It's estimated that, Colorado, in the case of the Air Force Academy, 5.47 parts per billion. Okay, so it all adds up into the total. And then we're in violation, but you can see we're in violation when we're approaching whatever it was, 68, almost close to 70, but I mean, if we took away all of our contributions to ozone, we'd only be removing maybe 5.5 parts per billion for the Air Force Academy monitoring, and less than 4 parts per billion for Manitou. So it's a fairly hopeless task. It's kind of a situation where a passing grade is 99 or better, by analogy. I don't know, did that help, John? Okay. It takes a little bit of looking. I've been looking at this for 4 months, and it still mystifies me a little bit. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so these are some things that area agencies are doing. We don't have to go through this in great detail, but I thought it had some good ideas that we might want to consider for our future, like idle reduction policies, electric vehicles. If we were to change out, for instance, our diesel pickup trucks that tend to idle, and there's an incentive to keep the trucks warm and thus idling and thus polluting the air. But if we were using, say, electric pickup trucks in place of that, we'd be doing something. So it would be a moral victory. We go on to the next. Again, okay, so there's a grant opportunity, and this is something that PPACG is asking member jurisdictions to think about doing, to participate in a grant or to seek a grant. And we do various things that we would never really rectify the situation a lot, but we could do a variety of small things that would hopefully help. And so that's one of the things I'm going to ask you tonight, is if you want to pursue that. Is there one more slide there, Judy? Okay, economic impacts. Okay, this is what happens if you get sent to the principal, if you get in trouble with the EPA. These are some of the costs that other communities have are experiencing or are projected to experience, like Oklahoma City there, 9.6 to 15.2 billion over 20 or 30 years. I think the general sentiment here is it's not a good idea to run afoul of EPA, and yet it's hard to comply with the kind of rules they've set up. So we probably need to be proactive here and respond in some fashion. I think that's it, isn't it, Judy? Can we go back? Okay, maps. Okay, if anybody wants that, I can send them these slides. Can we go back to the other deck there? The other slide deck. Yeah, I think it's the last 4 of 4. So the question is, council, do we, PPACG is going to pursue this grant. They, I think, would know sometime this summer. The participation initially would be that we maybe write some letters supporting the effort. If we got the grant, or if PPACG got the grant, all the member jurisdictions would be able to have input into it. We would need to make a commitment from staff, which would amount to about 100 hours of staff time over 3 years. We don't have to decide that tonight, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Any questions? Julie?
Did you say that there's going to be seminars on financial planning by Alex and somebody?
No, I'm
Can
sorry.
you
It's-
elaborate on that?
No, okay. Yeah, so one of the things that the area agency,
PPACG. Yeah.
Area Agency for Aging, AAA, one of the things they do is they have, they have both consultants and volunteers. In some cases, they're vendors who do this for hire, but they're contracted with through PPACG. They will sit down with seniors and kind of, they talk and they tell them, maybe you should get a will, maybe you should get a durable power of attorney, that kind of thing. Maybe you should do some financial planning.
Just in
Here's how you should do, help with budgets, whatever. So generally it's kind of adult supervision, if you will, but it's for some basic, some experience. And they would in turn, they might have to refer them to an attorney or whatnot. In some cases, it's pretty easy to imagine. You have single seniors who don't have close family, and they do okay until they have a stroke or something, and then there's a mess. They don't have a power of attorney. They don't have plans for their health care. And the intent is to get in there and provide those people with some answers.
I see. So there'll be experts doing that. I thought it was going to be Alex and Megan, and I thought, oh boy.
No,
Okay.
Alex just looks at me and says, "You're old." So most of the time he gets points. Okay. Anything else? Nancy and then Judith.
I just wanted to know if these slides would be attached to the minutes so that we have access to them. Thank you.
And again, thanks. The timing doesn't work real well. So Judith.
Yes, Mayor, may I make a comment about Senate Bill 23-213?
Please.
And also would like to a copy of the slide deck. So where it stands is there are a number of amendments that have been proposed to keep this bill on life support coming out of committee. And the CML has taken a stance that they will continue to oppose this bill vehemently unless the municipal mandate is removed. And I guess I would recommend that we consider, if that mandate is not taken out, they do have a draft resolution on their website and are encouraging municipalities who oppose it to present, to pass a resolution indicating that. That's all I have. Oh, and I'll be attending the Thursday night Zoom meeting on this bill and keeping an eye on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of feedback on what council thinks regarding Senate Bill 213. If it may be new information to you and you haven't had a chance to form an opinion yet, but if anybody has anything, it's a good time to say it. Michelle?
I responded to that email and I voted no. I'm opposed to that bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Julie?
Excuse me, I just wasn't sure, since those slides are from you, those are the statements in those slides are the mayor's opinion, not Manitou Springs City Council's opinion, right? Since, because we haven't
that's good.
voted
Yeah,
on it.
that's a decent point. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay,
But but you're certainly welcome to.
oh, no,
Get
I
the
mean,
information.
I'm glad they're looking at amendments. I think it was Mark Snyder who made a comment that he likes, carrots and bribes better than mandates, So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of the committee after their compromises. But I just wanted it clear because I was a little weirded out that there's a slide that might purport to represent what the city council feels, but it's not.
Yeah, and then I can't think of anybody on PPACG who didn't oppose it.
I don't, that's fine. Maybe they're unanimous, but we're us. And so I just wasn't sure with those slides being part of our packet. I didn't want the public of Manitou to think that we've already voted on that and that we unanimously feel the way it's said on those slides because we haven't. That's all. I just
Okay.
wanted clarity.
Okay, thank you. Nancy,
Yeah, I think that Judith's proposal of a resolution, if there's still time, I don't know when it might get out of committee. But that if there's still time that we could put a resolution together if everyone is concerned about this bill.
okay, thank you. Yeah, and I would be supportive of that. So I think we have at least 4 council members who are supportive of that. So we could go ahead and draft a resolution. It's going to be a while before we get back for an official meeting again, but perhaps we could, I guess, Mr. Parker, I'd look to some advice for you if we could do a resolution and then individuals come in and we can't really, we'd have to vote. So I
Yeah,
mean,
you gotta
a
do it.
letter of protest or something.
Yeah, you need to do it in a meeting.
And we
Yeah.
need to wait until they revise the law. We can't protest the law until
Right.
we know what
Yeah.
they're working on changing it.
Okay.
So we should wait till they change it and then we can talk about it.
Okay. We'll see as we get closer to the meeting in May where we're at. It may be dead by then or whatever.
And
Denise?
Mayor, I was just going to say, you can go in individually and oppose it as Michelle did. I sent you that link where everybody can go in individually and oppose this. So you can say that you're with the city of Manitou Springs and you oppose it if you so wish.
And you can also send it in and say that you love it. You can say either way,
Yeah.
because this is a democracy.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on then. Next item is proclamation number 0323, a proclamation recognizing National Library Week 2023. And not only do we have members of the Carnegie Library Task Force, we've got folks from Pikes Peak Library District here for us. So we'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and then we'll ask those folks if they'd like to say anything. Proclamation, National Library Week 2023 proclamation. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning by cultivating spaces for belonging, personal growth, and strong communities. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or status. Whereas in Manitou Springs, the library has been a centerpiece of the community for generations and is an important asset for our quality of life. Whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access to all. Whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, continually expanding their collections, services, and partnerships. Whereas libraries play a critical role in the economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers. Whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. Whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all, and by nurturing opportunities to develop and use critical thinking. Whereas, as we look to the future, we see the role of the library growing to include many forms of media and of making information available more broadly for the timely use of our citizens. Whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Manitou Springs City Council, do proclaim National Library Week, April 23rd to 29th, 2023. During this week, we encourage all our residents to visit and support their library and to explore the wealth of resources available. Dated this 18th day of April, 2023 in the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado. Right. And I see we have several PPLD folks here. If any of you would like to come up, and make a comment, this would be a good time to do it. Just ask that when you come up to the microphone, if you'll give us your name and I think your title or address would be fine tonight. You need to press the button in the middle there, the light will go green, and then try to get about 3 inches from the microphone so that we can hear you clearly.
can I use just my teacher voice? That would be easier. I'm Dora Gonzalez, and I'm the Vice President of the Board of Trustees. And I want to thank you very much for your support of Library Week and our libraries. And you read all the things that the library has to offer. As we all say, those of us that are library nerds, probably the first thing that I ever did, I've lived in Colorado Springs 43 years, but the very first thing I did was go get a library card. It provides so much more than when I was a child. Of course, back when I was a child, we did all our reading, all our research, et cetera, at a library. Microfiche, if some of you remember that. I do get some smiles, so I guess you remember. But today's world has brought the library into such a different focus. I encourage not only for all of us to go to your local library, but to attend other libraries to find out what they have to offer. PPLD has done an awesome job, I believe, in bringing makerspace and technology to our citizens. We can do almost anything in the library today. So again, thank you. And we appreciate all the support that you give us and bringing citizens into the library, because it is so critical to all of us. Julie?
I'm Julie Smythe, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees for PPLD as well. Sure. Thank you. Dora already covered, I think, most of it very well, but I wanted to add my thanks as well for your support. And I'm just grateful for the ways that PPLD has been able to serve the community here and in the rest of the Colorado Springs area. I also have been here for many years, and I've had a PPLD library card since I was about 5 or 6 years old, and also enjoyed visiting the different library branches in Manitou and in Colorado Springs growing up. But just so grateful to see the way that the resources have just flourished and grown, and more programs and ways to serve the community. And just thanking you for recognizing that today and through your proclamation, and also just again allowing us to serve the community alongside you in a way through the library. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Notice we also have our local librarian, or the manager for our Manitou Library, Taryn, is here. You want to stand up and wave? And we have Michael Doherty, who's PPLD's man in the Western section here. So thank you. Thank you both for being here. Did I miss anybody from PPLD? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. And we'll have a presentation copy of that proclamation for you. Super. Okay, let's go ahead then. We're going to do 3 hearings here. So if you were here for the library and you aren't excited about hearing of renamed sewer lines, you certainly have a few minutes we'll give you a few minutes to escape if you prefer. Okay. The first hearing will be a second reading and public hearing of ordinance 0523, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, rezoning 121 Ruxton Avenue, the Twin Springs building, also known by the assessor's office as schedule number 7405308012, Manitou Springs, Colorado, from general residential zone district to downtown zone district, RE 2301, and accompanying minor development plan, MNR 2301. Cassandra Bresnahan, owner. Okay, and we have Chelsea from planning here to walk us through this.
Thank you. For the record, Chelsea Stromberg. I understand that Hannah Van Nimmogen gave a presentation 2 weeks ago about for the first reading. We haven't had any changes. I'm happy to walk you through the presentation again or just answer any questions.
Okay, we will have a public hearing. Based on our experience last time, I doubt that it's going to be very involved. If what I would suggest is we go ahead and have the public hearing, and then if we have any questions for Chelsea, we can chase them down then. If there are any public comments, she might want to be able to respond to that. So Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and open up the public comments section. So this is a time when anyone in the public who would like to speak to this has the opportunity to do so. Okay, we have Cassandra. Would you like to make comments? You're good. Okay, I think this has pretty well been explained. Okay, well, looks like silence is going to be golden. So I'll close the public comments section. Council, do we have any questions for Chelsea? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve on second reading and public hearing ordinance 0523, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, rezoning 121 Ruxton Avenue, Twin Springs Building, assessors number 740530812, Manitou Springs, Colorado, from general residential zone district to downtown zone district, RE 2301. And accompanying minor development plan MNR 2301.
Okay, and it's my understanding from the way you stated that we actually have two pieces of business here. We have the changing the zoning map and then also the minor development. It's your intention to package both of those. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
I guess we'll give that one to Michelle. Any further discussion? If not, let's vote.
6-0 in favor.
Okay, great. Thank you. So amending the zoning map is passed, as is the minor development plan. All right, Cassandra, congratulations. Okay. Next item, second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 0423, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending Title 10 Vehicles and Traffic, Section 10.12.010, prohibited where, when, C, of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code relating to designation of color coding for parking restricted areas. And Roy, I think you're the man of the hour.
Yes, City Council, I'm here for that second reading to change the green for paid parking and yellow for loading zones and other restricted parking areas, and answer any questions council has any.
Okay, thank you. And of course, we have a public hearing with this, but John, I guess you've got a question, so why don't you go ahead?
Right. It seems like to me in the research I did, there is no other city who is using green for only paid parking. I looked and looked and looked and looked. In fact, if we do this green painting, and there is I looked all over the state, nobody else is doing this. In fact, the standard out there is that it's supposed to be for a limited time. Okay, not for just paid parking. In fact, I think the amount of green paint, I would suggest we all go out and buy stock in green paint. Okay, because this is going to be a monumental effort. So I'd like to know where this is coming from in terms of that all paid parking is green paint.
So I don't know if all green parking is green paint, but cities are starting to use green parking or green for parking, paid parking. A lot of the parking is still a challenge because of wayfinding is such a hard thing to do. So they're still coming up with new ideas, and some of the new ideas were the green, or it could be another color, but what I found was green paint is the one being utilized for paid parking because you only have so many colors. So the idea again is part of wayfinding new ideas and trying to get people to come in and say, okay, there's a green spot, that's a paid parking spot, and not try to look at all the signs, but actually try to use color to guide.
Okay, I guess I want to underscore, I searched and searched and searched. I can find nobody else who has this in their code. Okay, and I think this is an extraordinary expense. Okay, I think the standard that's out there, okay, is for limited time. Okay, and that's found in city after city after city after city, ranging from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. But I cannot find how anybody else is doing this. Nobody else is doing this in the state. Nobody else has green curbs like this. I think this would be an extraordinarily expensive thing to do. I think we cannot even keep the yellow curbs correctly painted in this town. I cannot imagine us undertaking this and what it will look like in 3 years. So that's my comment on this green paint thing.
Thank you. Anyone on council? Comments? Julie?
So following up from that, Roy, can you help us? What other cities are doing this?
Well, I would have to go back and look for the exact cities. Like I can't off the top of my head give you those, but I would be happy to do that and tell you what I've found. I will say that green, as Mr. Shada pointed out, is for restricted parking, which is exactly what paid parking is, restricted. So I respectfully disagree that it's not for that cause. How it's being used is trying to get some ideas on how to give wayfinding to the community and to the visitors. And this is one way. And again, green parking, you're right, is restricted for times. And that's what exactly paid parking is meant to do, is give restriction based on paying for that area. If the city does this and we promote that, then we can let people know that this is the green area are for parking. And we're talking basically the downtown area would be painted. I will also state that curbs tend to fade less often, and we would use at least a mid-grade or higher paint so it lasts longer. But it is true that paint will fade and it will have to be kept up.
Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is new information since first reading, and I appreciate Councilor Shada, your due diligence in looking at other communities. Number one, my expectation is if we're going to cite other cities using this, my expectation is we know what those cities are. So we can take a look at what's working for them and maybe not. Secondly, on first reading, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune very appropriately brought up the question of educating people. And if we are the only municipality doing this, my concern is that we're going to have lots and lots of tourists come into town that are going to be confused with our color coding system should we pass this. So I guess what I would like is to, if other communities are truly embracing this, I would like more information on what those municipalities are and how it's working for them. And also I don't know that we talked about how much this is going to cost. I know it was going to come out of the beautification fund, but if other municipalities aren't doing this, perhaps we need to spend those dollars elsewhere. Thank you.
Mr. Shada?
Since I was also a proponent of this beautification fund, I am also completely opposed to this fund being used for paint. This is what we have a parking enterprise for. And if we are regulating parking, automobile parking, okay, I do not like that we are taking beautification money that was supposed to be cleaning up the gardens, the trees, and the sprinkler systems and things like that downtown and using it on paint. So I am totally opposed to this ordinance in its current form.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
This is a question for Roy. It seems like we have so many signs in town. I mean, way too many. It's gross. It's visual pollution. And so now I'm trying to think what facilitated this. Like, we don't have enough signs, so people don't know they're supposed to pay for parking, even though there are signs everywhere saying you have to pay for parking. So now we have to do paint. If we do the paint, are we going to take the signs down and hope people know that what green paint means? Or is this to supplement the signs? Why are we doing green paint if we already have all these signs? Is that because just in case somebody doesn't know how to read, but they know what green paint means? I don't get it.
So the first question, Mr. Shada, it's part of the beautification program. We were to paint the yellow and fire red as well, but it's not coming out of that beautification fund. It would come out of parking. It's still part of the whole beautification of the city and fixing those areas that all need paint, like the yellow, the red, and if we did the green and blue for ADA. So it's not coming out of that fund. It's going to be, but I look at it as part of beautification. If we're going to clean up the city, then we do need to fix the other colors that are fading. And I agree with you on that. So trying to find ways to wayfind for vehicles when they're driving is difficult. Many cities are struggling with how to divert traffic and find areas to park. So the thought process was to give them visual cues. Now, the signage is part of the beautifications and it'll be reduced, and that's being worked on right now on where best to put signs so that we don't have excess. And currently we have excess. And I agree with you 100%. Once you have too many signs, no one's reading any signs. That's a fact, and it doesn't look good. So we are looking at a big reduction, and it's been with the planning department. We're working with them to make that change and reduce the signage. But the thought was if people knew when they were coming to town that they look for a green curb to park, they would get off the street sooner. It's a thought and ways to try to improve the wayfinding. And that's why it was brought. Some cities are starting to think of other ways and how to do this. And this was part of that process. Maybe there's a way to help cars find their way around and get off the street. Maybe it's not for Manitou, but just a suggestion that maybe there's a way to wayfind with this and reduce signage and then educate. And I did take that to heart that we would have to educate folks about the green. So that's really what we were trying to do, make improvements. Yeah.
But we'd be educating, if we're educating people who live here. People who come on vacation don't usually bother to go online or to call Denise and see if there's any education they should have. So the education would be for the locals, wouldn't it?
Well, the education's for the locals because we don't want them to be ticketed, obviously, or in the wrong
Yeah,
parking
but
area.
then see the sign. Well, it says paid parking, paid parking, paid parking everywhere you go. Why do we need? Plus, people know that green means go. You know, you got the green light on the traffic light. We've got green on. You know, when we talk, I've never heard of green means paid parking. So I'm not sure that that's going to be like an instinctive reaction that our average tourist or even our average resident is going to say, oh, there's green here. I guess I should go walk a few car lengths down and find a kiosk. Cause I don't know. Oh, well, but thank you for
No, I
helping me
understand what you're
understand
saying.
it.
I get it. And we would have to educate. And if, you know, I do think some people go on the website, we'd have to get it out there. You know, over time, people would start to be aware of course, paid parkings in downtown. And so they'll start to look at possibly colors and matching that to the fact that's a paid parking area. It also, thought processes would help people not park in areas they're not supposed to, like in residence, which would not be colored. So if they see a concrete curb, they know that's not a parking area at all for them. So that's kind of the thought process. And then to try to give them a color coded way to follow. And several new, whether it's universities, and they're looking at ways how to wayfind, and color seems to be a method they're trying to go to do to help vehicles find their way. And it may not work for everyone. I respect that. It may not work, but you know, it's a thought that it could work and see if we can do some more to get the cars off the street and maybe give them a way that's easy to find what they're looking for. So a sign up could mean, you know, very simply, instead of a bunch of signs saying paid parking, you know, just one with look for the green curb, you know.
And since we have so much paid parking, wouldn't it be more efficient just to keep it unpainted and just say you can't park everywhere where it's painted, whatever, purple. You can't park where it's purple. We have more parking than we do no parking, right?
No, if you're talking about residential areas, there's a lot more
No,
curbs. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're gonna paint all around the residential?
No. I'm
areas?
saying if you're talking about
Let's just talk
residential,
about Manitou Ave.
well, there's the yellow curbs, there's red curbs, there's blue for ADA. And then the rest is just pavement, you
The
know,
rest is gonna turn green.
would turn green
So everything has a color.
on the paid parking areas.
Thank you. Denise, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note that Denver does do the green curbs. So in Colorado, Denver does do it. And it says that they put the time that it's allowed. So there is a place in Colorado that does it. I think you're right. It's probably new, but there is, and I can send it. Yeah, it will say that it says the curbs are for limited parking, and the amount of time you may stay here will be posted either on the sign or the curb itself.
Right. And so almost every city who says this says it's time limited, 10, 15, or 30 minutes. And that's every single place. I could not find one city in which is using paid parking for green. Okay, not one. And in fact, you can go on Google Maps and you can go look at the curb colors and all these, and there is no green, okay, in this state. It's not downtown Colorado Springs. And so I think this is really actually confusing people as to what's going on in terms of the pattern. Because city after city, okay, and I looked at even leading, places that are doing this stuff, and it is clearly labeled time limited parking for places in front of post offices, ATMs, dry cleaners, etc. 10, 15, and 30 minutes. It's not for paid parking for hours, okay, and stuff like that. So I think this is actually a confusing things to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess that does kind of raise a question, because I mean, when people go to the kiosk and pay, they can put their phone number in and they'll get a prompt when they've got whatever the limit is, like a 15-minute warning. So then they can just add more time. So that it's a little counterproductive in when you try to figure out, when you assign a certain color to a certain amount of time there. So yeah, maybe we need to rethink this a little more and then figuring out what the costs would be on the paint job. That's a factor as well. Okay, Judith will do that. And then we're going to go to the public comment section, which I
This
imagine
is
will agree.
thank you, Mayor. This is a point of clarification question. Because in the packet on page 2 of the memo under pros and cons, you specifically list the cost as a potential con, but you say currently in our city beautification plans to update curb parking. So this may just been a misunderstanding on my part, but what I would like to say, because I'm leaning toward no on this at this point, based on this discussion, certainly wait to see what public comment contributes. But in the future, could you please just list exactly what fund it's going to come out? Because I read that as beautification fund. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Council, let's go ahead and get to the public comment section and we can come back to have a little more deliberation. So I'll go ahead and open up the public comment session. If anyone in the audience would like to make comments on this, you're welcome to do so now. Not a lot of takers. Oops. Okay. Linda, come forward, please. And if you'll give us your name and address. And if you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Press the button there. It's in the middle there and it should go green.
Ah,
Okay. And then
this better.
try to be about 3 inches from the microphone.
Can you hear me? Linda Moreland, 37 Minnehaha, it's echoing, Manitou Springs. I wasn't prepared for this. I came for the library, obviously, but I'm shocked that we're going to spend money on paint when we don't have money to spend on fire mitigation in this town. At the last budget meeting that I attended, we were planning on how to take care of the situation after we have fires. There was no budget for fire mitigation. I'd like to see this money go for something more important than painting the curbs. That's my comment.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Anyone else? If not, I'll go ahead and close the public comment session. Okay, council, we're back to deliberation. So Nancy.
I would just recommend that we table this until we get a bit more cost information and Roy has a chance to go back and take another look based on the discussion tonight.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Sure.
I'll second.
A motion, a second. Okay, so the motion is to table this until we can get a little more information. I think the questions we've raised provide some direction. We're still in deliberation, John, so.
Yeah, I
go
know,
ahead and
but I
comment.
think a point of order here. I think we must postpone this to a date certain. I do not believe we can just table this, correct?
Well, if you table it, you're just basically tabling it indefinitely. It's got to come
That's
back.
right. Exactly. It's postponing it indefinitely.
If you continue it to a date certain, then you'll be
Thank
bringing
you.
it back. at us.
When would you like to come back then?
I'm okay towards the end of May if Denise can find a time for that. That's the,
Okay, I amend my motion to date certain of May 16th, 2023.
Okay. Judith, I believe you were the
I
seconder.
concur with the second.
Okay, you'll support that. Okay, any further discussion? Let's go ahead and vote.
And we have a 5-1 vote in favor. The one dissenting vote is Counselor Wolf.
Thank you. Okay, next item, second reading, public hearing of ordinance number 0623, an ordinance adding new sections 13.04.011 and 13.04.012 to the City of Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning sewer lines and connection lines. Let's see.
okay, this
Exciting.
is me again.
Okay, Roy?
So this is the second reading to be able to delineate between a service line and connector line going from 90 degrees. So we can make sure that the residents and the city knows which line is serviced by who. So do you have any questions on this?
Okay, council, we will have a public hearing here in a minute or two. If you have any questions for Roy right now. I guess not. I will go ahead and open up the public comment session. If anyone would like to speak to this. Not an exciting topic, I understand that. Yeah. I will close the public comment session. Any additional questions or comments for Roy? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move approval of ordinance 0623.
Do we have a second? Okay, motion by Counselor Shada, second by Counselor Wolf. Let's go ahead and vote.
Then we have a 6-0 vote in favor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so that gets us through the public hearings and our next business, we're going to have two pieces. Business. Before we do that, I would suggest we take a quick break. Sorry, council's been at this since 5:15, so I think we need to get some blood in our legs. So if the audience doesn't mind, we'll take let's come back at 7:15.
I don't even know. I think we should clarify what we're doing here. Yeah, I don't, yeah, that's what I usually ask. What do you have supposed to do? Works, I mean, I've been, they would know, I guess. What was the point of it? They're gonna subdivide it and then he's gonna. It seems like you're saying that we're gonna provide water service to their property when they subdivide, right?
I'll take it. A 6-inch water. This top shall serve a minimum. So it says, the city agrees to allow.
I don't even know what.
Can we go ahead and get started again, folks? You know, thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. All righty. Okay, next item is we're going to hear from the Carnegie Library Task Force folks. The Preserve and Renew Our Carnegie Library Task Force is going to present their closure plan. So, and I believe we've got Mary Pulvermacher here by Zoom. So I think Mary's going to lead that effort. Mary, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we're reconvening from our recess. So you've got the floor. So go ahead.
Okay. For the record, I'm Mary Pulvermacher and I live at 20 Craig Lane. And I'm here to present the Preserve and Renew Our Carnegie Library Task Force closure plan. If we could put the charts up, please, on the screen. Thank you very much. All right, can we go to the second chart, please? All right, so the purpose of this presentation tonight is to inform both the Manitou Springs City Council and also our community that the Preserve and Renew Our Carnegie Library Task Force has met its goal and actually has retired. So I missed updating this chart, but we're actually retired today on April 18th, not on May 1st. Next chart, please. This chart just shows all the task force members, both current members and previous members, listed in alphabetical order. And on the right-hand side is a chart that you've all seen before many times that shows the key collaborators on the Manitou Springs Carnegie Library project. Next chart. So in terms of the task force history, we formed in the summer, we stood up. So we formed in the summer of 2020, so 2.5 years ago, in response to closure of the building due to an ADA lawsuit that was filed. We thought there was an opportune time to finally expand and restore the historic building. So one of the key roles we played was advocacy. So we built community support for a renovation and expansion project and advocated for the city to do a restoration and expansion project. Another key part of our history was to collaborate and engage. So we collaborated with the Pikes Peak Library District and the city to help advance this goal of having the historic building preserved and expanded to allow for a library to function in this space and be accessible to all the public, not including those who are differently abled and not able to get into the current building, which is very small and has a occupancy limit of 19. So we collaborated on things like architecture selection and community engagement. If you count all the public meetings that were held to get the public, to allow the public to provide input, there were over 20 public meetings to solicit community input. And frankly, I believe that the process used on this, while kind of long and arduous, was really kind of a model in many ways for public engagement, in that the community input did significantly alter the design that the architect came up with. And I think the resulting design that was finally approved by the city is a stellar design, which is highly supported across the community. And so that is at the point of transition. So
Mary, we're having trouble hearing you. It seems like you went on a
campaign fundraising steering group. So the
Mary, could you hold up just a minute, please?
To co-chair a community fundraising steering group. And they're eager to launch that off and get going. And it's time for that group to sort of step in and take over the helm. And the task force, so the task force officially retired today. And we're encouraging our members to continue to volunteer as individual contributors, doing things such as helping with grant writing, helping with marketing, helping with the fundraising, et cetera. And whatever way each of us feels we best would like to continue to serve. But we've met our goal and have indeed retired. So next chart, please. Oh, and I wanted to mention this is sort of a really quick recap of our history. There, as the council knows, but just for the public to be aware as well, there's a more extensive history and accomplishments white paper that was written by Laura Ettinger Harwell, which was delivered as part of this package as well and is linked to the agenda tonight. So if people want to see that white paper, it is linked to tonight's agenda. Okay, thank you. Next chart, please. So this chart shows Carnegie Library project responsibilities. The coding on there is the city, the Pikes Peak Library District, and TF is for the task force. The responsibility legend is that O is for owner, or the person or organization that is accountable, and A is for assist. So for the group or people who have helped on that responsibility. So when you look at raising the public awareness and advocating for a library project, the task force owned that responsibility, and I think successfully completed that, and a library project was indeed launched. Contracting for the architect for the library design, of course, is owned by the city since they own the building. But of course, the Pikes Peak Library District, the task force helped on that piece. And the community outreach on the library design is also owned by the city. And so they are accountable for that, but both the Pikes Peak Library District and the task force helped significantly on that. Contracting for a capital campaign consultant, again, owned by the city. We did help, the task force did help on that. Approving the library design, of course, has to be done by the city since it's their building. But a key partner in that is the Pikes Peak Library District, in that they are the ones who are going to lease that building to continue to perform and serve our community by having the library there. Advocating for the initial funding for the library project, the accountability for that is the city, but of course the task force helped a great deal with that. Now, to complete the library construction funding, again, the responsibility for that, or the accountability or ownership, belongs squarely with the city. But providing library services and programs is, of course, the Pikes Peak Library District once the building is ready and for the library to move back into it. Next chart. So the next steps for the task force. So one is to deliver the task force materials, which we've done tonight. That includes this history and accomplishments white paper that is linked to the agenda and available. And also we have a very extensive archive that was begun when the task force stood up, of all kinds of information on the library and its history, meeting notes. It really is quite extensive. And so the plan is to make the bulk of that archive available to the city and to others as desired. So it could be the Heritage Museum, it could be Pikes Peak Library District, Special Collections, et cetera. Rob Dannon and Laura Ettinger Harwell are working on getting that prepped so that it can be delivered and made available and accessible. And so that will be done shortly, and that will be done separately with notification to the city when it's available. Our task force has worked for 2.5 years to get this project launched, get the project approved, which has happened. So we plan to have our volunteer members celebrate that success. But as I mentioned, we've officially retired as of today. And we are coming forward as a courtesy to let the city know and the public know that we no longer exist. And as I mentioned before, one of the next steps is really to continue volunteering as makes sense. So encourage all the members to continue to volunteer. And so just to let you know that months ago, our task force, the volunteer members of our task force met and decided to retire the task force upon approval of the Carnegie Library project. And so now that that's been done, as of today, the task force has been retired by its volunteer members, so it really no longer exists. I'd like to clarify that the task force was formed in July of 2020 by the members and not by any council resolution, and certainly not by Council Resolution 3620. So as a side note, I want to mention that the council cannot dissolve a volunteer group that it did not create. So the recommended action for a motion to dissolve the task force is out of order. And if we go to the final chart, just to say that we are very proud and of the work that's been done, the collaboration that's been achieved, the results that have occurred. We're grateful for the opportunity to have been part of this very successful endeavor, and we are eagerly anticipating groundbreaking and construction and ribbon cutting of the new expanded, incredibly beautiful Manitou Library. And now if anyone has questions, I'm available. And there's other members of the task force, I believe, present in the audience as well, who are available to answer any questions you may have.
Nancy?
Thank you. I would say you as a task force have a great deal to be proud of, and you clearly are, and it's well deserved. And I think the entire city owes you a great debt of gratitude for all that you've accomplished and all the work that you've done. I do have one little picky thing about the white paper and the name precision and accuracy. And that is on page 3, the third paragraph. There was never a suit against the city.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
Against the PPLD, it was just a threat of a suit.
Okay.
So that's all. Thanks. But
All right,
thank you so much for all that you've done.
thank you, Nancy.
The council members? Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the members of the Carnegie Task Force for a phenomenal job. I was, and this is an excellent white paper. I have one little tiny picky thing to mention, but I kind of did a walk down memory lane of when the task force started. I mean, we January 20th, we were sworn in this council, of which there's several of us still here. And our first order of business was approving match again and getting a board set up. And then COVID hit. So you've done all this during a pandemic, which is epic. But also, you also did this. There were 5 council faces that, you know, that are different now from when we started this whole process. And also, you did this when we lost a planning director. And now we have a new planning department, and we kind of hit pause when the recreational marijuana issue was on the Colorado Springs ballot. And also we lost a beloved Manitou resident and also PPLD director, Mr. Stark. So those things weren't in the white paper, but those are in addition to everything that's in there. If I would change one thing, it's mentioned, and I don't know what page it's are, that there, it just talks about some of the robust community engagement, and the words passionately negative were in there. And I just encourage that to be passionately diverse, because I know when you have that many community engagement meetings, you know, there's gonna be all sorts of passionate ideas. But I do think every single one of those informed what the final approved plan is. And I think it's really outstanding. So thank you for your service. And I look forward to seeing what happens with the fundraising portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Other council members? Comments? Okay, would any of the task force members like to make comments? Marcy, it looks like you got volunteered.
I complain about not hearing.
Thank you. I truly did not anticipate this. Mary did such a great job, and she's enjoying herself in Vermont. I hope you are with your grandchildren.
Definitely.
Thank you for the kind words that you expressed to us, to those of us who are here tonight. And we look forward, obviously, to this next stage. I think it'll be very interesting. We have a lot of people who, well, I shouldn't say a lot, that's an exaggeration, but we have a number of people who are willing to get involved in the fundraising. And that is a very positive step. Usually you say fundraising and people kind of back out the door. This has not been the case. So I think we're going to have an enthusiastic group, as we were enthusiastic ourselves, and we still are. So I just want to thank everybody. We had our ups and downs. I think that clearly stated nicely, but we did. And maybe I think all big projects, and particularly a project like the library, which for a little Manitou is a big deal. It was inevitable that we would have a couple of steps that we had to step back and then think it through and work it through with some of our constituents. And they obviously, I think we can all say that we are better for it. The project is better for it. And the outcome, the building, which is the most important thing, the building will be much better for it. And I do look forward to the opportunity to see that building come out of the ground. I keep waiting for that first shovel in the ground. But thank you. I don't really have anything else to say. And you all who have been here throughout the whole process, as you pointed out, Judith, we covered a lot of ground, didn't we? And when you mentioned those things, I thought, oh my gosh, I was here for all of that. Oh. But again, I think those three of us who are here tonight, I think we're three of us. Other people have other things to do. And some of them, by the way, will be serving on the task force as well. So they will have a fair amount of history behind them. And we will pursue on and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say to Mary, thank you for taking this time when you're on your vacation to represent us. It's very important. You did a great job. Thank you.
We've had people who have been involved at every step of the way at different times. And I think it's very interesting to see how that has gone. People who have stepped in, stepped out, come back again. So we have a lot of loyalty to this project. And thank you, Mayor and the council.
Great, and thank you all. And on behalf of council, it's a very small token of our appreciation, but we have some little medallions we'd like to give you. They have the Manitou logo on it and it says Historic Manitou Springs. Maybe I'd like to think that by the end of the year, there'll be another little medallion that has a picture of a new library on it. Pass those out when the dirt's broken. So I'll only pass those out.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought so too, but
Also, I'll mention that I appreciate the feedback and the kind words. We will also make a commitment to updating the task force to make the corrections that were mentioned tonight by Councilor, by both Judith and by Nancy. So we'll get those updated and we'll share a new version of that white paper so that the one that goes into the archive is accurate. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wear the medallions with pride. And Mary, Marcy has yours. So when you get back, you know where to find yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for all the hard work you've done. phase 2 starts pretty soon, or the next phase, the last phase, get the money, get it built. Great.
Also,
Thanks.
I'm a little remiss in not mentioning the great collaboration. You know, I showed the collaborators chart, but I also want to give a shout out to the city who has been, you know, city staff who've been wonderful collaborators on this, as well as the Pikes Peak Library District and many, many others. So we do appreciate that. So, okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Yes, okay. All right, that takes us to our last item of business tonight, Mountain Metro questions for route service. And we have two representatives from Mountain Metro. Roy, this is kind of your bailiwick here normally, so why don't you start off?
Okay, so I do have Len Rao and David Mentor here from Mountain Metro, and twice a year, Mountain Metro provides 2 opportunities each year for public input on their services and transit routes. So they're going to do a short presentation and then answer any questions or any thoughts on changing routes or things like that related to it. So I'll give it to them now.
Great, and if you'd give us your names and titles, be fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. My name is Lan Rao, Acting Transit Services Manager. David Mentor is our planning supervisor who really put the slides, PowerPoint together, and he is here to do most of the talking. And I will be here answering questions, and if there are any.
Great. Well, good evening, David Mentor, Transit Planning Supervisor, Mountain Metropolitan Transit. Of course, the city and Mountain Metro have been partners on transit service for years. And the purpose of this presentation is also just to provide you with a brief update and a chance for questions, like Roy said. So to advance to the next slide here, I have to tell someone anyway that I'm ready for the next slide. So transit, the city of Manitou is known for being quite a transit hub early on. In the 1887, we found this slide from the Colorado Springs Pioneer Museum. The Manitou Street Railway began operating. It was quickly replaced later by the Colorado Springs and Rapid Transit Railway in 1890. Anyway, quite a rich history, replaced by buses, I understand. And we have the library folks here that we could actually correct us on this. Please jump right in. But anyway, we understand transferred to buses in the 1930s. On the next slide, I think it was around 2011, correct me if I'm wrong. I was here briefly at that time. Well, I was here for 6 years at that time. I was working with Dan Folk, your city planner at the time. And he came to me and said, what would it take to get more transit service operating in this city? So we went after a grant, worked with land, and we went after a CMAQ grant to help Route 33 get off the ground. The route started with several different types of buses early on. They had cutaways. You can see there on the left, there's an old brown shuttle that we used for a while, and then another short cutaway bus that was used for a while. Your service we're very proud of your service. You should be, hopefully, I hope you are. You have the busiest bus route in the entire metropolitan area. It rivals the busiest bus routes in Metro Denver on Route 33. So you are transporting quite a large number of people, and we're excited about it for you, even if maybe you're not. But when you have a good market, I'm a service planner. When you have a good market, you want to stay with it, and you've got a really good market here. Of course, on the next slide, we can see that you have actually several services provided by Mountain Metro in the city. Route number 3, maybe most people know, runs from the downtown Colorado Springs Transit Center to Old Man's Trail Park and Ride, where you can transfer to Route 36 and 33. These are other routes that Mountain Metro operates with participation, of course, from the city of Manitou Springs, which buys up extra frequency in the summer on 33. And Route 36 operates with additional funding provided by the city of Manitou. The city of Mountain Metro, of course, puts in other funding for those routes as well. And then also with ADA paratransit service by Mountain Metro, you get ADA paratransit service. With the fixed route service, like I say, you get ADA paratransit service for riders in the city. Let's see, I think there were almost 1,000 rides last year provided on ADA paratransit, 924 rides provided on ADA paratransit service. And for those are for riders that are not able to make use of the fixed route bus by ADA law and standards. People can come in for a functional assessment. And if they are not able to make use or get to a fixed route bus stop, then ADA Metro Mobility Service by Mountain Drive Metro will pick them up and we'll take them anywhere in the metro
Dave,
area.
Excuse me, David, could you move the microphone just a little closer, about 3 inches?
My bad.
Okay,
Okay.
no, that's fine. Thank
To
you.
me, it's really loud back here, but okay, good. Lan, if I'm shouting, you'll just have to stop me. So anyway, the fare for that is $3.50, which is twice the fare of the fixed route service on route number 3. Then also in addition, so on the next slide, you can see route 3 is the fixed route that goes, if you want to, excuse me, this map is the slide of the ADA paratransit service area in metropolitan Colorado Springs. You're off to the side there on the left. That little appendage out there is route 33 and 36 in Manitou Springs. Again, anybody in that area in Manitou Springs that is qualified for an ADA rider trip is allowed to go anywhere in the metro area based on their functional assessment. So on the next slide, route number 3, of course, is the Manitou Colorado Avenue bus and the Manitou Avenue bus. It operates to Old Man's Trail every day of the year, except for 3 holidays. And the frequency is every 30 minutes. And the purpose of that route is to get folks to and from Manitou. So to jobs in Manitou from people outside the city, and to get residents and students in Manitou Springs to other destinations in the Colorado Springs metro area. That fare is $1.75. Of course, that's the 4th busiest route you can see on the slide. And the Old Man's Trail boarding park and ride is last year was 16,000 boardings. That is the 2nd busiest bus stop in the entire mountain metropolitan system. So you have the 2nd busiest metropolitan area bus stop here in Manitou Springs. So we're happy for you for that. Hopefully you are too, but as I say, we're happy to have a good market and you really have one. The other slide beyond this is route number 33. Of course, you probably know about this maybe the most. Every route has a purpose. Every route is designed to have a purpose. And the purpose of route 33 is to shuttle out of town guests and visitors to the destinations of the Incline and the Cog Railway. And it functions from Old Man's Trail parking lot to the Cog Railway. Its peak season is from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and off peak is from 6 to 6. So you are buying up extra service with the funds that you provide in addition to the funds, of course, that Mountain Metro provides. You get 10-minute service on summer weekends and other times it's 20 minutes. Of course, Route 33 operates all year long. No rider fares are paid because of the agreement that you have signed with Mountain Metro. The route after this on the next slide is Route 36. It operates largely in the downtown, the area of the downtown business district here in Manitou, from Old Man's Trail up to, and I'm going to forget the name, Serpentine parking lot. Forgive me. It's not the exact name. I'm close. Is that close? Okay. Thanks, Roy. And it has 14, I'm sorry.
Hiawatha?
Yeah.
Hiawatha parking lot.
Sorry, my bad. Forgive me about that. So anyway, its ridership was 14,000 people last year. And of course, it operates just in the summer. So it just operates in the summer. The busiest stop there is also at Manitou Avenue and Ruxton on that route. So it serves quite a few people and shuttling people from the remote parking lots through the downtown business district. Again, that's a summer only route that you're paying for by IGA with the grant. You pay the full fare on that. Mountain Metro doesn't participate on that. So where we're going on the next slide, let's see, we can flip past that one for just a second. Where we're going forward is that currently, we're reviewing the potential for changing future contract costs for Route 33 and 36 based on your high ridership. We've been talking to Roy just a little bit about that and have some ideas to bring forward at a future time. Currently, we're investigating, of course, also the future electric hybrid replacement buses. We have a couple of grant buses we're hoping to flip after talking to Roy because there's such an interest in Manitou for clean energy and clean buses. We think we'll be able to do that, but we do have to investigate their ability to climb the grade on Ruxton Avenue, but there are other options for us to use them on 36, Route 36 or other parts of town. We're also looking with Manitou staff, the potential to use the city's electric charging stations for a test project for future electric buses that we hope to get here. Currently, we are also researching, you have your alternative downtown tram concept that I know that you're working on here. And we're looking into the safety and DOT and FTA regulations to see if MMT could provide Mountain Metro could provide drivers for that or not. We're open to further branding or wrap concepts for the city to wrap the buses in some sort of design or some branding that might be desired with the city based on your high ridership. And then we would look forward to future joint partnerships and grant projects, such as, the grant project that started Route 33 going forward in the future. And you have such high loads on Route 33, you probably do merit additional service at different times. And we're looking at the potential of that ability or not. And of course, we'd work with you on that. So Lan might have a little bit more information, or you want to just go to questions? Sure. All right. Thanks for listening to me, and forgive me about library folks. If I've gotten a little bit of your history wrong, you can jump in and correct us, but I'd be happy to hear it, by the way. But please jump in and ask any questions. We're here for you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we'll go ahead and open up to council questions. Mr. Shada?
For Route 33, the current rolling stock you're using on that, what's the capacity of that bus?
I believe the latest, most often they use a 35-foot low floor bus, and seated capacity is roughly 35.
35.
Yeah.
And so do you use a larger unit on that ever?
They might occasionally have a 40-foot bus out there, but I am not aware of that.
I think we normally use 29 and 35 foot. 40 foot would be difficult to turn around.
Well, the reason why I was wondering is, I have lots and lots of pictures of long lines of people waiting for 33. And I was just wondering whether I believe the turnaround, in the cog lot would accommodate, a full size bus. I mean, I've seen them turn big, giant, over the road coaches in there and that type of thing. So I was just wondering whether that would be a way of increasing the capacity without us having a lot more trips. In other words, just having a larger unit.
My understanding is we actually tried to put a larger bus there, and the low floor bus would bottom up, and we had to work really with the cog rail to basically redo the ground. And so short answer is a larger bus, larger than 35 foot would not work.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So those big over the road coaches must have a higher clearance.
Yes,
Okay,
ours are
okay.
pretty low floor to
Yeah.
help with boardings and wheelchair.
Okay.
That
Okay.
doesn't mean there might be a special bus that we could find, but the ones we've been using, they are lower, you're correct, than a highway coach.
Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming. I was trying to go through our archives and find out the last time you actually were here physically to visit us. So thank you for coming. I was all excited this year. My husband and I are both 65 now, and we, for the first time, got our first senior Metro bus pass so that we can experiment taking the number 3 bus so that I have a better understanding of how that services the residents and tourists of Manitou. I do have a question about the 33 shuttle, and primarily my question is related to the residents in that Ruxton corridor really have a tough time. There's lots of cars and buses and diesel smoke going up there. And So what I'd love to see is maximizing moving as many people around as we can and getting as many cars off Ruxton Avenue. So that's a good thing. But also not overloading Ruxton Corridor with diesel buses. So I'm glad to hear that you've got some EV or EV hybrids in the pipeline. My first question is, do you know about the timeline that you are going to be rolling those out? Is that 1 year, 2 years? What's that time frame?
We have through PPACG, we have a few grants out there for both hybrid and BEB buses. We have 2 awarded BEB buses, awarded funding.
Excuse me,
Can you?
Lan, I'm not sure council understands BEB. I believe
Oh,
that's
sorry.
battery electric bus.
Yes,
Is that correct, Samantha? Okay, so
Correct.
battery electric bus. So that's a bus that's entirely electric, no internal combustion engine. Is that correct?
that's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. We currently have 2 buses awarded funding. But those 2 buses are planned for Route 3. We do need to go back to PPACG board asking for their approval to move those 2 buses planned for Route 3 to Manitou Springs. We started that conversation with PPACG staff a couple weeks ago after Roy brought this to our attention, and they are pretty open to that request. We do have to go through the board approval. Once the board approves funding, there are 2 funding sources for those 2 buses. One is called multimodal MMOF funding. That one, I believe, is in an earlier year for award. The other half of the funding comes from CRP, carbon reduction, CRP program. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's program. So those are actually a combination of 24, 25, and 26, 3 years of funding. So we have reached out to CDOT asking for whether or not if we have any pre-spending authority. And on the purchasing side, we are in the middle of a bus purchase RFP that those different sizes, 29, 35, and 40-foot battery electric buses are in consideration. So we're hoping everything works out and we can place the orders sooner. But we really don't have an answer right now.
So hopefully with the fact that it's the #1 busiest MMT route, hopefully that will give us some cachet, because I would love to see that neighborhood area, especially that canyon, gets some relief from traffic and noise and diesel smoke. One more question. It's regarding, I recall the last time you were here, we talked about the Route 33 bus running every 20 minutes. And I see here fall through spring or summer weekends, you've got it running every 10 minutes. I don't recall when we discussed that happening on council, but maybe I just don't remember. But is that just in the peak season of tourism? So, and if so, what months would that be running? And does that require a third bus, or do the 2 buses that are currently running accommodate that 10-minute schedule?
Yeah, as I understand it, from talking to the operations folks, it's a 2-bus operation that does cycle when the second bus is added in the summer. And so it gets to a 10-minute headway, and the demand is there.
Okay.
You know, and as a transit agency, we hate leaving people behind at the curb. So the demand is there for the 10-minute frequency. I am not sure if that has been discussed in the past, that is what that boiled down to for the city or not.
Yeah, so we have gone to the 2 buses because of the lines. And prior to that, there were lines that were, going all along Memorial Park and people waiting for buses. So I believe it was probably even 3 years ago where we decided that second one just during the busy season because of all the lines that were getting backlogged there at Memorial.
And that second bus is added then just on the weekends, like on Saturday and Sunday and holiday weekends. And then that second bus is out there from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. because that matches the departures on the COG road and the demand at the incline.
And that's just through the busy season on the weekends. Is that what? I'm-
Right.
Okay, and then who absorbs the cost of that? Additional.
In the IGA, there was an increase from 2022 to 2023 that Manitou Springs is paying, but that's not the bulk of the increase. The majority of the increase comes out of PPRTA funding.
I just don't recall that ever coming to council for discussion. It didn't.
Judith, I remember hearing about this, and I think it was a council meeting, and as I recall, it was, I think Mountain Metro proposed adding the extra buses to increase that a 10-minute cycle time as opposed to 20 minutes. And that was just for, Saturdays and Sundays during summer. And I think maybe summer was defined as in July and August, really the peak season. And I think it was really, as I recall, and I have to search my memory a little bit, but I think we took their recommendation because we had people backed up down here at the park.
Exactly. I do recall when we had that last discussion that it was Mountain Metro that was absorbing the cost of that second bus at that time. That is my recollection, that at some point that the Mountain Metro was absorbing that cost. So I don't know if there's just something that we missed in some communication or something changed in the IGA and didn't get to us. I just a little confused about that.
I hope I didn't misrepresent it here to you. Yeah, I would just go to the IGA language itself, and it says it's an 80-20 split for the summer service.
Thank you.
For the peak summer service. And by the way, just one other thing, summer service this year starts April 30th through September 30th.
Thank you.
Julie.
Thank you. So what it says under, on the slide about Route 33, it says summer weekends. That's not just July and August, that's April 30th to September 30th?
That's correct.
And you said there's an 80-20 split on the payment for that second bus to make it every 10 minutes, is that correct?
I'm just reading the IGA, so forgive me. I wasn't party to the way that it was written, but it does say, beginning in 2022, the cities of Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs agreed to an 80-20 cost sharing calculation for peak season Route 33 service, whereby the city of Colorado Springs, who's our Mountain Metro's fiscal agent, right? Pays 80% and the city of Manitou pays 20%. So that's specifically what the IGA says.
And that was an IGA that was signed in 22, I assume?
Says it was signed by the city December 12th, 2022.
And did that, what you just read to us, did that pertain to the second bus on the weekends for
Can I-
May, June, July, August, and then September?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
May
Denise.
I make a point? I
Yeah,
think
could you interject?
here's in 2020 for Route 33, we paid $63,360. 2021, we paid $68,557. And then I came to you and I told you I negotiated this with Colorado Springs. 2022, we paid $33,774. So we went substantially down because I did some negotiations. 2023, it did go to 43,000 because their cost went up for gas. So we have gone down since 2020, which was 63,000 down to 33,000 and then 43,000. And that includes the additional cost. So we've negotiated very well with Mountain Metro on this and the city of Colorado Springs regarding Shuttle 33.
When did we decide that we were going to have a second bus for 5 months of the year? I think I might have missed that meeting.
I don't know. We'll have to go back and look.
I'm not sure
don't
that I
know
agree with that, and I'm not happy about it. A summer weekends turns into a 5-month period? That's quite the expansive definition of summer. How much are we paying then for this second bus? Is that a number that is easily obtainable here?
That includes the second bus.
How
So
much is
that's
just the second
all. Oh, I
bus?
don't know that.
How much is the first and how much is the second? I just want to know how much is the cost of the second for our 20% share. That's all I want to know. And I don't think we ever agreed that summer is now a 5-month period.
May I just add some ridership information?
Certainly,
We
please.
currently
Yeah.
don't have the summer, of course, but based on the March ridership information on Saturday, Route 33, we were seeing on average 47.3 passengers per hour. And on Sunday, this is again in March, we were looking at 43 passengers per hour.
Okay, thank you. And I'm thinking back, and maybe it was at a PPACG meeting, and when we were talking about, or PPRTA, talking about transit. My recollection is the every 10-minute cycling was not for what we consider our full 5-month summer season, but rather just July and August, as I recall. Well, I'd like to be right, but I'm not sure that I am. That's what I remember, and that's what I'm trying to share with you. The idea was to take the burden off of the bus system during those 2 really heavy duty months. I think the proposal was made by Mountain Metro, and I think initially they covered it. And this is 2 or 3 years ago, so forgive me if I'm a little fuzzy on it, but that's kind of what I remember, Julian. My perception at the time was that Mountain Metro was, doing us a good deal. I mean, they were helping out.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify. And to Denise's point as well, I don't mean to suggest that we're getting a bad deal. That's not my concern. I just don't want more diesel than necessary on Ruxton. We've had so many complaints from people. We all live in that ward. We know what it's like. And it's awful. So if we're going to have for 5 weekends in a row, a second bus going up and down there, I'm not so happy about that. And I don't know it's necessary. We don't have long lines all the way down. First of all, these are all COG people mostly. And I think we should ask the COG to pay whatever extra we're paying for our 20% during the summer. I want to know, this says summer weekend. So before we go, I'd like to know if that December contract that we signed contemplates that we're going to have every 10 minutes for 5 months, or what their definition in that contract is of summer weekends. Do you know, Jeff?
No, I'd have to look at it. I don't have the contract in front of me, so.
Okay, Mr. Shada?
Well, I'm certainly sensitive to the diesel stuff, but I think the demand is certainly there. And last year, by my calculations from kind of publicly available sources, the COG Railway brought 80,000 additional people to Manitou Springs. So you guys can translate that back in terms of the number of bus trips, and they have a static size parking lot. Okay. All right. So we're very much, I think it's very important that we have a high level of service level. And I think that even though I'm sensitive to kind of the diesel kind of stuff, and certainly I think anything you guys can do to get us cleaner, transit vehicles, okay, or more efficient,
Sooner.
you know what I mean? In that corridor is very important, which is why I'm very excited about all the opportunities you guys are doing. But that translates to 32,000 additional cars in town. And so I want to underscore to everybody in this room that is really vital that you said, what was the size of bus? You said that we're the largest size bus we're using on that route?
35 foot.
35. So that's essentially, there's maybe approximately 2.5 passengers per car, I think is kind of the normal kind of thing for tourist kind of, calculations in terms of the number of tourists are in a car. So we can kind of do the mental calculation that each one of those buses, okay, at 2.5. That's how many cars we're likely taking off the road. So this is going to be until we get the kind of these cleaner, buses on that route. This is going to be whether we're putting that many cars going up that corridor, looking for parking spaces. All right. And anybody who stands at the COG station and sees the number of people who come up and cannot find parking. Okay. The quicker we can get them parked in town and on some kind of transit, in my opinion, the cleaner Ruxton will be. So, I applaud, anything we can kind of do. And I think the reason why the ridership is so high in Manitou is because I think we've gone to a concept here where we're asking our visitors to pay for parking, and we're then encouraging them to use free public transit. And I hope that, you see that works, not only, like you said, do we have a really good market, but I think we also have just a really good model in terms of how we're using this. I have a feeling that if we started charging fares for this, I think we would have a real hit in the ridership. And so I think this is something that we need to really keep the service levels up. So thank you very much for being attentive for that. Thank you.
Sure. And we would be glad to review a future IGA agreement, change if it needs to involve service levels or something. We'd be happy to look at that, I'm sure, with you all. We want to provide a service that is well used, and it is, and that's also meets your needs too. So.
Mayor,
Denise and then Nancy.
I just want to make, I found it was brought to council on 4/6/21 for the second bus, and it was approved at that point. I haven't read the minutes. I'd have to go back and do it, but we did a whole presentation, and it did talk about that second ridership or that second bus on 4/6/21 at that council meeting. And then Julie, I can't answer what it is because the invoice isn't broken down by the second bus. It's an invoice just saying 33,000, which is a very, very low amount. You guys are covering the majority of that. And again, that was due to renegotiating that, but I don't have it broken out by what the second bus cost.
Are most of those riders going to the COG, to our knowledge?
I couldn't, that would be you. I don't know if we can say what's the COG and what's the incline. I know there's quite a few at the incline that go, but I don't, because in the mornings and Mr. Shade, I think during the summer, you can see that in the mornings, there's also a line for the incline.
Yeah, we could get that number for you. I don't have that here. If we break it out.
Oh, you have the number?
If we break it out, I'd be happy to get that for you. I am not sure if we do break it out. No? Oh, okay. Let us look. We'll see if we can get it for you. If we can, we'll get it for you.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, I agree with John Shada. I see Mountain Metro as getting a lot of cars off of our roads and also being really good partners, and I think our partnership has been stronger than it has been in the past. So that's great. And I would just ask you guys, knowing what our priorities are here, to continue to help us and provide recommendations to us on how we can do even better in the future by getting cars off of our roads and reducing emissions. And I know that takes time, and I'm very impressed with your partnership and your dedication to finding us low emission vehicles. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little bit dense, but you had mentioned earlier which routes are using the battery electric bus. I was thinking that was going to be Route 3, but maybe that changed. Could you clarify that?
The grant award was for Route 3 service enhancement. But since Roy brought it up, we have been looking into moving those two buses to Route 33 at this point.
Okay, so I mean, then that seems to me like a stroke of good luck, because we'd have electric buses, making the incline run. I mean, that reduces the diesel fumes in Ruxton Canyon substantially. I mean, I think that's what so many of our residents were hoping for, was to see a reduction. So,
And
We need to buy a lottery ticket. We're on a roll.
And we do need to test them to make sure they can make the grade. We actually have a 40-foot bus that we, right now, that's electric, and they did a test, and I understand it didn't make the grade.
Well, okay, we've got to deal with reality, but we appreciate you, trying to be innovative and address our concerns.
And Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we did it was last year, a year before, we talked about the EV shuttle. And that is the problem on the grade on Ruxton. So one of the solutions might be that we need to power an EV charger up on the top of Ruxton to make it work. But also with regenerative braking, which puts power back into the battery, they might be able, as things get better and the batteries even get better, that it might work otherwise too. So that's been the challenge, was trying to have 33 actually an EV. But we're hoping we can, whether it's put an EV charger up there or maybe these are the batteries, it seems like every few months, there's improvements on EV already. So maybe we luck out as we move forward on that.
The
Okay, great.
backup option would be hybrid. So hybrid is a technology that's well received by transit agencies nationwide. So that could be another option. But what a better pilot program we can get other than partnering with Manitou Springs. You have chargers planned to go in that we can test the on-route charging, which would fully give us a full picture of what those electric bus potential would be and the grade. This is a great test environment, and we would love to partner with Manitou Springs.
Excellent. Thank you. Kind of reminds me of General Motors used to have a kind of a secret garage here in Manitou where they would get cars ready and test products by taking up Pikes Peak. And as a small child, I remember watching on TV saying, probably they'd say, test it on Pikes Peak, get yourself a Chevy, something like that. And it'd show it going through a blizzard, up above Timberline and Pikes Peak. So I think I see a new advertising campaign here in a few years. Great. Council, do we have other questions? And if we want to make any changes to the winter schedule, the schedule will start at the end of September. I think tonight's the night we want to ask those
Right,
questions.
it's May, and I don't know what the cutoff in May is, but it's April, May. And then you have to get out in June for public comment, and then it would be end of September, I believe, for a change.
That's exactly right. In fact, we're talking internally about fall changes now. And so typically, again, we would go back to the typical non-peak Route 33 service only for the IGA buyout part. We also would keep, of course, Route 33 and the ADA paratransit.
And I think the paratransit, this is the first time we've really had those numbers, which is pretty impressive for our community. The number of people that are using the paratransit, and that's due to the partnership that we have with them. The other thing I want to mention is one of the things I would ask council if you want us to do during this time, and we've talked about it briefly, and I'll have Roy step in, but we've talked about, do we want 33? And Mr. Councilor Shada said he thinks that would hurt if we wanted to charge something for Route 33, a quarter a ride or something like that, just to help with the cost. And if so, and we don't know if even a quarter a ride would work because they have to go through and do all this federal analysis and all this. They have to come back and say, maybe it would be this or that. Do you want them to look at that for the September, October, or do you want to just let it lie and move forward as we're doing?
Judith?
Well, I'm going to say this because I say it every year, even though I'm an N of one, that if I were to make any change, I would have the 36 bus go year round. I believe that mass transit should not just be for our tourists, mass transit should be for our residents as well. And if we're going to charge for any bus, I don't know if we could accommodate a smaller bus on that 36 shuttle off season, but I know I live over there and I'm the one, I don't bring my car into town when that 36 bus is running. except maybe if I know we're going to stay late for council. So that's one car off the road, but I know several residents, many residents in that area that would take a shuttle into Manitou and pay for it. So if I was going to monetize any route, I would pay for it. So my personal thought is, I think it's great that our tourists come into town and they get to ride up to the cog or the incline at no charge at this time. But I think that might be something that I would think that would be worth looking at, is monetizing a year-round 36 shuttle and charging for it.
We'd be happy to look into that and continue talking with Roy on that. There might be some options that we could look at and bring back at a future time.
Might I ask how the rest of council feels about that? Is it basically, would anybody be opposed to looking into that? Roy, you're opposed to it?
I'm not opposed to it. I think it's worth looking into because of the numbers on 33, but we are only talking about a fee for 33 and not necessarily 36, I believe. I don't know if you have to do both, but 33 is the one that is overwhelmed with pedestrians and riders, right? So I don't know if you can do one and not the other, but the initial thought was 33 would be charged something small so that the parking in Hiawatha is still worth the cost, and maybe it offsets some of our costs, but 36 maybe is not charged.
Well, why don't we just charge more for parking, which is already being undercharged, instead of messing with charging for the bus? I'd rather charge for the parking, and that way the bus is always free.
Well, parking continues to go up quarterly so far.
I know, but I don't think I'm going to live long enough for it to go up to the proper price, because it goes up so minuscule. And we've argued about that before, so I don't want to get into it again.
Yes.
I'm just saying, if you need more money, raise the parking rates.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So John, did you have a comment?
You know, I am against charging for transit in Manitou. In fact, I really believe that actually the city ought to figure out how to encourage more use of the number 3, okay, by making it also free, okay? Is there actually, I'm trying to remember, there's not a zone change, is there, from, no. It's one fare for whether you ride all the way down to the downtown transit center, right? Or whether you just go to Safeway, right?
That's correct. $1.75 walk up, 85 cents for senior and youth.
And so to me, I would like to see us move in the opposite direction, not fiddling around with all these fares and all these coins and stuff like that, that we actually incentivize people to use the bus, okay? That we actually even make it so that it is free to hop on the west side of Colorado Springs and come to Manitou. All right. I would like to see it go in the other direction than all this nickel and diming and stuff. I really believe that our parking enterprise should be completely subsidizing transit in Manitou. That's my opinion. So I'm not interested in some kind of study or something like that, unless that study would show that we would really, really dramatically change headway, times and service levels and things like that. And I don't know if I'm interested in just doing that just to see empty buses driving around town, because I think that's also bad public policy. I think people look at that kind of thing and they think that's a waste, when you see an empty bus. So I think the success that we're operating under right now, I think we just need to keep pushing the rope on that as much as we can. Thank you.
It's a good comment, John. You triggered a couple thoughts. I believe Route 3, the route from downtown Colorado Springs to Manitou, is one of Mountain Metro's busier routes. I think it's maybe like 3rd or 4th. Okay. Yeah. So, it looks like there's a success story there. People are using it. They are paying something. The bus company needs to collect some revenue. So I get your point, John. It'd be nice if everything was free and everybody could go to heaven and not die. But it looks to me like they've got a winning formula there. I'd be reluctant to go in and try to recommend substantial changes without looking at it real carefully.
Well, my question is this: what if number 3 was had twice the ridership. Okay, but it was free. And we figured out a way to subsidize that with parking. We have these other things here talking about we're a risk in a non-attainment area. And we're fooling around with fare boxes and things like that. It seems like to me, we ought to be encouraging people to park and use transit. And to me, to communicate in another direction where we're going after fare boxes, and we're only talking about, $50,000 a year or something like that. To me, I think is foolhardy. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Other counselors? Okay, so Denise.
I just want to make a quick comment. Once we get the vans and the trams, hopefully 36 we don't any longer need. And we can do that year round with the vans and trams and work on that. So that's kind of the direction we're hoping to go. We just still need to get them ordered and figure out how we're going to do the drivers, et cetera.
Okay, great. So part of tonight's exercise is to determine if we want to make changes, and I was thinking of schedule changes to the fall, winter runs. The one concern I had was we used to run from 6 to 8 p.m. in the winter, and I think we got rid of that. The bus there was an empty bus. And I think we've gotten, so my concerns, I think I'm pretty happy with what we've got. Does anybody else have concerns? Yeah, John.
Yes, I've been going through the big giant Garden of the Gods parking and transit study from 2019. And I guess I'd be really interested in looking at their numbers, which are really, really, really scary in terms of their parking demand over there. And I guess I'd be interested in figuring out, instead of dickering around with fare boxes and things like that, of us talking about how in the world we can kind of knit together, okay, Garden of the Gods with Manitou Springs, using kind of a success story that we already have, all right? Because as I see it, they've been talking about in that 2019 study of doing outlying parking areas, okay? They're talking about wanting to maybe enlarge the parking lot at the end of Becker's to 200 cars, all right? And to me, I think if we can get people to stay, okay, parked, okay, and use transit, and as popular as Garden of the Gods is, I see that as something that we ought to be looking at, those kind of synergies in terms of Manitou and Garden of the Gods, in terms of transit, and really accelerating that and figuring out how that works, okay, as opposed to, dinkering around with fare boxes and things like that. So I'm interested in much bigger transit partnerships, okay, with us, in Garden of the Gods, I think is a key one, all right, to try and get the vehicular traffic. And I think probably the Garden of the Gods Park would agree with this, that having more and more cars just circulating around Garden of the Gods. And I just would like to see us figure out, how do we enlarge this success of 33 and 3, okay, so that when people come to town and to this area, it's a bigger idea than just Manitou saying park and use transit. So that's my comment in terms of just partnerships and seeing that Garden of the Gods study. Are you guys familiar with that 2019 study? Yeah, I would suggest that you look at it. It's really pretty interesting. And I know they were dinking around with some kind of transit ideas over there, but it seems like to me, really just step up that partnership as well, because I think there's no reason why you should not be able to stay parked. Even if you parked over there at those parking lots over there on 30th Street, I think you ought to be able to transit easily into Manitou Springs, have lunch, okay, do whatever you want, okay, by leaving your car there, and vice versa here, and go over the Garden of the Gods as well, as opposed to moving your car around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, does anybody have any concerns about the actual schedule for the winter run? Are we pretty happy with what we've got? It seems like it's worked well. Okay, so I see pretty much a sense from council. So I think I think our assessment is that we like the schedule that you have been using for the winter months. And I don't see that there's a lot of interest from council in wanting to change that part. You can see we have a lot of other ambitions and passions. So I guess you can take those home with you and factor that into your future plans. And we very much appreciate that. Council, we got Roy, okay?
Yeah, just a reminder that the spring change, I believe, is November, December input for a January public. So if there's any changes over the summer or thoughts, and we could always entertain other ideas in November, December.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And once we hear from CDOT and PPACG on those grant and timeline of when we can expect to place an order for the buses, we can report back with Roy and Denise and let you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think it's pretty exciting, eh? The other people at PPACG, I mean, they're going to be jealous of the cool electric buses that will be used out here. So great. You know, I think I saw a picture of one of the buses there. It's wrapped with Nikola Tesla on the side. And does that ring a bell?
I think that's the wrap.
I think, yeah, and I thought this is tremendous. This is the father of alternating current electricity, and he's being promoted on a direct current bus. So there's a certain historical irony in all that. You just gotta love it.
One of the things Dave wants to do is wrap Manitou Springs buses.
We could do it.
With your help. Yes.
Okay, great. Else, do we have anything else for our visitors here? I guess not. Well, thank you very much. We very much appreciate
Thank
it.
you is what I was gonna say. I mean, I find you coming out here so productive and really you've encouraging us to be more visionaries. And so I welcome anytime we can have a conversation about bus. I agree with Councilor Shada. Micromobility is the way to go, and anything we can do to make that happen anywhere, any place in this town is a good thing.
We're all for it. We'll be happy to come back. We'll keep up with Roy.
Great, you're welcome. Hey, I think council would like to give you a couple of badges. So. Okay, council, thank you much. We're at council correspondence. Do we have anything? Julie?
When I was driving into the meeting tonight, there were two of the black police trucks side by side, facing east, sitting in the, I guess you'd call it the roundabout, the mosaic tile area at Ruxton and Manitou, where people used to cross the street. That's our crosswalk. And they were just sitting there for quite a long time. I just didn't think it looked good. It looked kind of threatening. And I didn't know, like, what are they doing? I thought we were supposed to have like community policing where they, ride their bikes or they walk up and down the streets getting to know people. But I was like, why are these two police cars and these guys in there just sitting there? So I didn't like that. And I didn't think that looked good for the city. And I don't imagine it would be terribly helpful unless there was some bomb threat today or something. Do you all know what that was about? Oh, well, I just didn't look good and I didn't like it. I also want to know if we could have an update on what's happening with the Briarhurst, because if we're going to go ahead and try to use that for parking, then I want to know that there's a way to get all those people.
Julie, we had discussed that topic, I think, that you're leaning into in an executive session. So maybe
I just blew the secret about parking in Briarhurst. Okay, well, let me just change the subject then. What is the story with that van? There was the electric van that four of the folks here got to ride around the city. I thought it was a tram, but it was a van. And then Denise just mentioned trams. Are we getting trams or are we going to decide, is this on the agenda for council to make some decisions so that we know how we're going to be transporting people this summer other than through Mountain Metro?
You know, Denise?
We're hoping to bring it to council as soon as we can get all the numbers and everything put together. So we were hoping by today, it just does not work. Hopefully May 2nd, and if not the following one, which is May 18th, and we'll bring it to council for recommendations of how to move forward with the cost, et cetera, which includes the tram, is the picture that I sent you, and also some vans, because there's a need for both to some extent. So we'll be bringing that to council in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
Two things. One is, I don't know if anyone's seen the chamber, but it looks great. What an improvement. It's been refreshed. I haven't gone inside, but the outside has been painted and new windows put in, and it looks so much better. So when you go down that way, take a look. And secondly, I think, Judith, you're going to the thing with Dr. Reading this Saturday? Or whenever it is. Is it this Saturday?
They're meeting at Norbu's at 11 o'clock on Saturday, and I cannot attend.
Okay. I just wanted to know, the invitation went out to all council, and I was planning to go, and I didn't want to go if there was more than 2 people going. That's all. So I didn't know if anyone else was going. I'm not seeing anything, so I think we're safe not to post that as a meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I guess, so next Tuesday would normally be a work session, but we don't have anything planned for it. So we're off next Tuesday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for a regular meeting again. And I did want to, I forgot, Roy, I wanted to thank you for the work you've done with Mountain Metro. I know it's been a lot of back and forth with that. And I think the fact that we're the ones getting the electric buses has a lot to do with what you've done with pushing it forward. And yeah, I know when I'm at PPACG, there are some who laugh and say they'd never have an electric car. And I say, no, it's the future, and you got to give emerging technologies a try. So I think I'm going to be, I think Manitou is going to be the envy here in a few years of some of these other communities when they see what we're able to do and how we're able to positively affect the environment while getting people moved around, solving several problems at once. So Roy, you're a big chunk of that, and I appreciate the work you've done. Thank you. Anything else? City administrator staff, Roy?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I will say that with Mountain Metro, the 2 new folks there in management have been real open to discussion, and that's a good change. It wasn't quite always that way. We're actually going to be meeting monthly, our staff, myself and Dole and them, to make sure we're staying on track with the shuttle. And then from there, we'll probably spread it out maybe quarterly, but we want to keep in good conversation with them on how things are going. Number 2 is that we haven't forgot about the roads. Is that season? The asphalt companies are open. We got bids. We're going to be paving soon. So I believe there's I think about 16 roads that we'll be fixing this spring. And then Monday we'll be doing, we got CDOT to stripe down Manitou Avenue. It's just going to be the center line and the turning lanes this go around. But that'll be Monday morning, and they'll be done around noon, and that's all planned with traffic control. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Denise?
Yeah, I just want to add to that contract for the paving will come to the May 2nd under consent because it has to go to PPRTA on May 3rd. So we'll be bringing that to you on May 2nd with all the details. That will be under consent item because it goes to PPRTA. And other than that, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Looks like we've done everything we'd hoped to do. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn? We have a second? You object? Okay. I'll second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Good night. Thanks, everybody.